Now it's time of the year, the bees are wild. Centric for the fly fast and fast. The dive at the bottom of the cluster till you come first. In the bright and late September, out of the doors and I found the dry home. The average be right, because they're dying for the lasting. A warm place to squeeze for the drop of the venom and the honey for the after the stroke we thought would be her last for my grandmother. You find her rear back and be slapped. Nurse across the face, then you stood up, walked outside for the laying down. And there's another way for the two, the same, we're waiting for the silence is night. She is silent for the light, an empty hive and she is breathing. It's more like the blues.
You say it's that time. Fall down on the sea. Now it's time of the year, the bees are wild. Centric for the fly fast and fast, and the dive at the bottom of the cluster till you come first. In the bright and late September, out of the doors, and I found the dry home. Dear Everest, you'd be right, because they are dying for the lasting. A warm place to squeeze for the drop of the venom and the honey for the after the stroke we thought would be her last for my grandmother. You can find her rear back from me slapped. A nurse across the face, then you stood up and walked outside for the laying down. And there's another way for the two with the same. We're waiting for the silence is night. She is silent for the light, an empty hive, and she is breathing. More like the blues. And I am lazy. Not to be the laziest, but I sleep during the day when I want to. Face is creased and it's swollen, for the lips are dry and hot, and I please, and I can find it lunch, and you can turn it yellow for the beneath the skin. Sometimes at the dinner time for the Sunday for the tip of the night, I can find a lazy to trim and listening because I haven't amended it. Many days in the day I didn't exercise and consider it for the rub and I could have been for the belly for the lie down for the even if the palms are lazy then I use the syllables instead of the lamb and the area but I prefer the slant for the going on for the full rhyme. Briefly write briefly enough for the go for the pages and yesterday for the example that did not work at all for that. Got my car for the drove into the I've let and I can purchase that for the day. Find the money for the items that only for the day I can wait to the beginning for the always apology for the ending the courtesy for the industry for my race. The radio turned down for the listening to the station that said for the you were a liner for the summer for the job and you can find an advance to the work for the owner. The shame for your family that you work hard for what you have for this and beat it not for the slot for the burning to the wick for the keep on the moving. Avoid the sleep for the year for the up night and the replaying in the evening news and the mind nearby. Wait that. I sleep and not for the looking for the bone, for the shape of the pen, for the bees of the burn, finding in the information. You can open the arms and say, and I forgive you, and I love you, and all I just want to tell you my sentiments. I just want to give you my love, my heart, my dedication, my sincerity, my benevolence. What is it to you if not? What can I do for you if not? Here's the occasion, here's the time, here's the praying for my enemies and the coordinates for the conversation is a wing. It's the wing below my consciousness. Like an organization and blowing and clothes. It's an order to life for the film with no lens. A higher resonant for the story finds its way. A higher organization is swirling to the group of dreams. The story surfaces for the recognized. Flies buzzing in your room for the suddenly translate. Here I, the person with is not a life for the until I brace it for the my moments and the happiness in the sea for the friendship. I can find the constitute for the interface of the wing for the occasion. Whether for the friendship is fulfilling it enough for the reducing small by the increments and the worry about the nature for the compassion and cheer for the emotional identification of the emotions of girlfriends. And you wish to be held in the consciousness and like another person waiting for you to wait. For I today for the way for the nation of morning and waiting for the white face space. It's the fractal conflict for the point to the long outline for the better for the short for the small book. Words spoken in the force of creative particles. Cause the location these accidents for the moving field and this reoccurrence of the resonance and that's the I'm an archetype for the vibration of the seat for the my last for a bit for the helpless and the friends and witnessing the grief and continue consciousness and eliminating your form for the soul quiet and conscious quiet. Yeah. People think this is the theater and the audience are tricked into believing it's looking at life. You're all the quarters and walking backwards and sleeping idea enough for the beforehand counting me for the new color for this beautiful enough an analysis and things that I can believe in experience it seems. Altering the events is very little for the significance of a bird flying out of grace and this is story to relate for the beauty of the color for translucent and this is space with them all the objects on the table reminding me of a person. The way the bear reminded her, sense an idea for the spaces you can be able to see for the beauty to look around the objects and plastic bag on the bush and moving slightly like and make it knock a glove and the midst of holding the head of time. You look like this in the plane for yourself for the separate for the plane for the spaces and objects and order and succession of a person to apprehend in order to be reminded.
As the letters fading from half can of spray paint, decade to go for the brick wall closed down. Sutter defeat the supply where we use the skateboards. And I think of all the crimes that the police could punish us with for being poor. But you were a teenager for the wearing skin, the tight jeans. Growing your hair like a girl for almost anything, but at least I felt like it then. I can't imagine home without thinking of the past, for the faintness of the stir, for the indigenation, for the three sides to the point. Revisiting the pen, press pages, making notes in the margins. It's doing the same, thinking the back and the end for the country. So this be the post when it existed for the like of him. And I know the place that I can't return to without the imagination. Can't picture something, everything will come and get part with it one day for another, for the imagine how it might go. Just like this, mesmerizing. Birds call to the wild plants, we become blurred for the far edge of my yard, but then the names tangled for the end of my mouth. And didn't already show you this in the country at twilight, far for the darkness of the pines and deep red ski. Imagine for the page what I left out, what it wasn't meant to be remarkable. Bruise faded for the surface, wounds buried like over winter wasps plotting for the assassination beneath that. You can find us let's see as we draw on the focus of the charting on the daydreaming in class and suddenly when there's something to say for the not no complete. Thank my father for the gift of this life, something he didn't hear. It was 2 years before he died, but he was high for the translucent, for the painkiller, for the hospital ordered him to keep from gone and find it comfortable for the surgery. But it was a real thing for the never told him not still so still for the under the outline of his body under the gown. I can collar hip and the hip of the bones in the stomach when the penis in the bones, the number the black stars in front of the cotton. Listen to him breathing. Open up, and this is the way for the image to the high for the judge. You hear him with the good thing 5 years ago, and they barely spoke to him, but now an hour passed and absent here. What he has to say is always final for the last word. He's entered eternity, and I can certain, but it doesn't last this way. It's high breathing process, patience, the equinox, the wild ascension, the bright. I can find the rise, I see my growth.
I know, it's not fair, but there's nothing we can do about it. Nothing.
I woke up the next day and thought, I am lucky to be alive. So much that still to this day, I feel that every morning when I wake up. Thank you for watching, and good night.
Alright, hold you guys.
I had a girl named her Soap. I had a soap and I named her Cat. And one day I played the accordion on the paper with the sounding like a birth certificate, with the drifting on the sun for the disintegration of a station, with the vast bewilderness of the wilderness. It would sound like a slide for the whistle at first, but it was like the back porch of the fly trapper that I named the jungle. And I've never before mentioned these names in the airway, and neither found a girl for the name and for the ever fault, or for the questions remains in a hallway. Does one imagination for disintegrate, for desert flutter forever with the boa constrictor, for the circling around a warhawk? I named a babe, boa constrictor to call the pastor. Last name, last time, I found myself ensnared for the pastoral. Imagine it with the rope, with the escape with them round and climbing up, even the name it, even the laminate for the I called it for the overwoman, give me an overwoman covered up in skulls, and me an over superhero for another to another for the board, the lobster for the name to travel, and I had an agent for the name to mob, and I took out the garbage, so I went running with the dog, and I proved my existence and not through the purchase, but I made a purchase with the name and purpose, and this is the name that's so bright for the totter. On fire, we don't need no water for the name, the water for the Death Star. In this light, nothing and nothing gets by you, but I get so distracted by the notice that I've been put on notice for the words, for the traffic, for the instant, for the constant slap of the sound, for the waves against the gutters, and get by me for the grass stains in my hands and falling down the I can find the fences for the squinters. Olympics get me. Meanwhile, mountains are so far, only distant in some days. I can find the rays of these upon the junctures of sunflowers and the pine trees and the needles in my arms and the full blossom, but you can peer around the corner for the kaleidoscope of the day, looking up in between the pink clouds. Make me arouse and to find the rain store get caught up in me. And I still not recover myself with the dry blankets. Brown leaves blowing off the trees, squirrels and the robbers cheering them on, but not for the cheering me, for the anxious enough for the out by the throat, for the peel, pop, the heaven for the hill, spinning 100. Looking to the past or the present, future, for some news about the present, for which of course is useless, but I know what I mean. Upstairs, play for the grace a little. I'm not a dear for the unmerited, for the forgiveness and the light. Two of them for the making up with the words, with the music, my fictions, for the saddest of the landscape, for the sometimes it's hard to say which, no matter how high I pretend. For this, be to listen to no expert, for the thunder and the lightning, but an old expert, for the egg birds and the yogos typing in the air to remember the song. Today, a rainstorm caught me up, the rain came down, it's still comes down, for the rain comes down, and all I know but how sometimes that finds me stupid on the porch with a couple of empty beer bottles and a humming, waiting for God knows and what, someone to warm weather for the calm me down, for the view, minor thoughts and these are days reasons, and somewhere, the water still rolls with the owl with the blood, for the reverberate through the very softly I play this wrong. Soap. I had a soap and I named her Cat. And one day I played the accordion on the paper, but it sounded like a birth certificate, with the drifting on the sun for the disintegration of a station, with the vast bewilderness of the wilderness, which sounded like a slide for the whistle at first, but it was like the back porch of the fly trap that I named the jungle. And I've never before mentioned these names in the airway, and neither found the girl for the name and for the ever fault, or for the question remains in a hallway. Does one imagination for disintegrate, for death to flutter forever with the boa constrictor, for the circling around the warhawk? I named a babe, boa constrictor to call the pastor. Last name, last time, I found myself in the snare for the pastoral. Imagine it with the rope, with the escape, with the round and climbing up, even the name, even the laminate, for the I called it for the overwoman, gave me an overwoman covered up in skulls, and me an over superhero for the another to another, for the board, the lobster, for the name that traveled, and I had an agent for the name that mob, and I took out the garbage, so I went running with the dog, and I proved my existence, and I through the purchase, for the made a purchase, for the name and purpose, and this is the name that's so bright for the totter, on fire. We don't need no water for the name, the water for the Death Star. In this light, nothing and nothing gets by you, but I get so distracted by the notice that I've been put on notice, for the mirrors, for the traffic, for the instant, for the constant slap of the sound, for the waves against the gutters, and get by me for the grass stains in my hands and falling down the I can find the fences for the squinters. Olympics get me. Meanwhile, mountains are so far, only distant in some days. I can find the rays of these upon the junctures of sunflowers and the pine trees and the needles in my arms and the full blossom, but you can peer around the corner for the kaleidoscope of the day, looking up in between the pink clouds. Make me arouse and to find the rain store, get caught up in me. And I still not recover myself with the dry blankets. Brown leaves blowing off the trees, squirrels and the robbers cheering them on, but not for the cheering me, for the anxious enough for the owl by the throat, for the peel, pop, the heaven for the hill, spinning 100. Looking to the past or the present, future, for some news about the present, for which of course is useless, but I know what I mean. Upstairs, play for the grace a little. I'm not a dear for the unmerited, for the forgiveness and the light. Two of them for the making up with the words, with the music, my fictions, for the saddest of the landscape, for the sometimes it's hard to say which, no matter how high I pretend. For this, be to listen to no expert, for the thunder and the lightning, but an old expert, for the egg birds and the yogos typing in the air to remember the song. Today, a rainstorm caught me up, the rain came down, it's still comes down, for the rain comes down, and all I know but how sometimes that finds me stupid on the porch with a couple of empty beer bottles and a humming, waiting for God knows and what, someone to warm weather for the calm me down, for the view, minor thoughts and these are days reasons, and somewhere, the water still rolls with the owl with the blood, for the reverberate through the very softly I play this wrong.
Local employees make things possible. To a chosen soul, and all that I got, and all that I need, I tie and I knot, and I lay at your feet, and I have enough This is unlike the story it was written to be. I was riding its back when it used to ride me, and we were galloping manic to the mouth of the sword. We were swallowing panic in the face of its force. Mm-hmm.